I didn't have a name at home. Only a role. When the red light was on, I existed. When it turned off, I disappeared. My parents never asked how I felt. They checked angles, lighting, numbers. I thought this was normal. Until one mistake changed how they looked at me forever. Our house didn't look like a place where people actually lived. It resembled a sterile operating room or a furniture store where sitting on the sofas was forbidden. Every room was meticulously set up as a stage set. Beige tones, perfect lighting, and absolutely no personal items on the surfaces. I was forbidden from leaving a book on the table or a mug in the sink because inspiration could strike mom at any moment, and the background had to be flawless. My life was dictated by the posting schedule, not my needs. If I was hungry while they were filming a blender commercial in the kitchen, I waited 3 hours in my room without making a sound. My bedroom was the only place without professional lighting, but even there, I wasn't allowed to hang posters because sometimes they filmed a morning routine in my bed. I grew up with a clear understanding. I was not a resident of this house. I was a living accessory that had to harmonize with the expensive curtains and create the illusion of a happy childhood for 2 million strangers on the internet. The morning began not with breakfast, but with an appearance check, as if I were undergoing a technical inspection before a race. Mom examined my face with a magnifying glass, looking for the slightest signs of fatigue or skin imperfections. Any pimple caused real panic and emergency measures. Layers of concealer and special lighting to hide the defect. The food on the table was always cold because we couldn't start eating until Dad took 50 shots from different angles. I learned to chew cold oatmeal with a frozen smile, looking into the lens rather than at the plate. As soon as the camera turned off, my parents' smiles vanished instantly, as if someone had cut a wire. Dad buried himself in his phone, checking reach, while Mom started criticizing my posture or the way I held my spoon. There were no conversations about school or friends between us. The only words directed at me during breakfast were commands. Chin up, don't slouch, fake the joy more naturally. I felt like a mannequin that knew how to breathe. At school, I was an outcast, not because I was weird, but because I was forbidden from getting close to anyone. My parents were terrified that a classmate would take an unflattering photo of me and post it online without filters. This could ruin the brand of perfect genetic code they were selling to advertisers. Therefore, I wasn't allowed to go to birthday parties, participate in sports, or stay after school. Immediately after the bell, Dad's car picked me up. If I was 5 minutes late, a scandal awaited me at home about how I didn't appreciate their efforts and was risking the family business. My clothes were also a problem. I wore only brands my parents had a contract with. In winter, I froze in jackets that were too light because the new collection of down coats hadn't been released yet, and wearing old ones was a breach of contract. I remember a teacher once asking why I was always dressed so lightly, and I lied that I felt hot, just to not reveal the insanity happening at home. I was protecting my jailers. Financial dependence was absolute. Even though my face helped sell merchandise worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, I didn't have a cent of pocket money. My parents said they were saving everything for my trust fund, which I would allegedly access at 21. Any request to buy a book or a video game was met with a lecture on how expensive my upkeep was. We buy you the best clothes, take you to resorts, feed you organic food, what more do you need? Dad yelled. But they didn't understand that for me, resorts were work, and clothes were a uniform. I couldn't relax on the beach. I had to pose for hours in the scorching sun until they got the perfect shot. Once, I tried to find a part-time job walking dogs to have my own money. When Mother found out, she threw a tantrum, claiming that a millionaire's son couldn't pick up dog excrement. It humiliated the family status. She forced me to call the neighbors and quit while looking me in the eye. The pressure intensified when we signed a contract with a major teen skincare brand. Now my face was worth more than our entire house. I had to demonstrate glowing, clear skin every single day in stories. My parents put me on the strictest diet. No sugar, fats, or dairy products. They watched every morsel I put in my mouth. If I wanted an apple, I was reminded that it had too much fructose. I started feeling constant hunger and weakness, but on video, I had to radiate energy and health. Every morning began with measurements and weighing. If I gained or lost even half a kilogram, Dad adjusted the portions. I felt like livestock being raised according to specific quality standards. They discussed my skin and weight in front of me as if I weren't in the room, using terms like marketable appearance and commercial appeal. I stopped looking in the mirror because I didn't see myself there, only their business asset. The culmination of this madness was the preparation for the live stream of their channel's anniversary. A huge event was planned where I had to play the piano. I hated music, but it looked elegant, and thanked my parents for their love. A week before the event, the tension in the house became unbearable. Dad screamed about the wrong shade of a shirt. Mom cried if I didn't smile widely enough during rehearsals. They didn't sleep and didn't let me sleep. One evening, exhausted from lack of sleep and hunger, I was helping Dad set up a heavy new lighting fixture in the living room. My hands were shaking. The stand wobbled. I tried to catch the falling lamp but lost my balance. The heavy metal structure crashed down, and the sharp edge of the light diffuser sliced across my left cheek, from eye to chin. The pain was sharp, but the sound of silence that hung in the room after the crash was scarier. My mother's first reaction was not to call an ambulance, but to close the curtains so that no one on the street could see what was happening. She didn't run to me, she ran to the phone to cancel the upcoming shoot. My father looked at me not with pity, but with disgust, as if I were a broken vase that could no longer be placed on the mantelpiece. "Do you even understand what you've done?" were his first words. Red liquid flowed down my neck, staining the designer carpet, and it was the carpet that my mother was most concerned about. She threw me a towel and told me to go to the bathroom so as not to stain the interior. They didn't take me to the hospital until an hour later, when they had come up with a story for the doctors so that it wouldn't look like parental negligence. In the car, they didn't discuss stitches and possible scars, but how they would lose their contract with a cosmetics brand. I sat in the back seat, pressing a rag to my face, and realized that, to them, I had just died, even though my heart was still beating. The scar remained. It was long, red, and crossed half my face. The doctors said it would fade over time but would never completely disappear. For my parents, this was a verdict. When we returned home, the regime changed. I was officially forbidden from leaving my room when guests were in the house or filming was in progress. "Your face clashes with our message," Mother explained coldly. They began carefully deleting my photos from the feed, replacing them with landscapes or product shots. They hosted the anniversary stream without me, telling followers I had the flu and was in bed. I heard their cheerful voices from the living room, heard them accepting congratulations while I sat in the darkness of my room. They didn't even bring me dinner because they were too busy celebrating success. I became a dirty secret that had to be hidden in the closet. My usefulness had ended, and with it, their imitation of love ended. A month passed. The flu could no longer be an excuse, so they invented a new lie. In her stories, with tears in her eyes, perfectly made up, Mother said that I had decided to go to a closed elite boarding school for gifted children in another country. "It's so hard for us to let him go, but it's for his future," she said to the camera, wiping away a non-existent tear. In reality, I was sitting in the next room, locked in. I was only allowed to go to the bathroom and to the kitchen late at night when everyone was asleep. I became a ghost in my own home. They even stopped buying me new clothes since no one saw me anyway. I wore out old t-shirts that had become too small. The scariest part was seeing how quickly the fans forgot about me. The comments were full of admiration. "You're so great for giving your son such an education." No one asked why the loving parents didn't show a single photo from the send-off or a video call. The lie was accepted at face value. The isolation started to drive me insane. I heard them living a full life behind the wall. They began filming our dog, a golden retriever, more often. It now occupied my spot on the sofa. The dog got collars more expensive than my food. Once, I found my certificates and school awards in the trash can. They threw out everything that reminded them of my presence. I realized they were preparing the ground for my complete disappearance. If I was at boarding school, it meant they didn't need to feed, clothe, or even notice me. I tried to talk to Dad when he accidentally bumped into me in the hallway at night. I asked how long this would go on. He didn't even stop, throwing over his shoulder. "Until you become presentable or until you turn 18. You're just in our way." There was not a shred of sympathy in his voice, only the annoyance of a manager whose important tool had broken. Then they took the next step, which finally destroyed my faith in family. They started casting. Officially, it was called Searching for Young Talent for Collaboration, but I saw who they brought into the house. They were boys my age who looked like the old me, blonde, with clear skin and correct facial features. They were looking for my replacement. They filmed videos with these guys, calling them like our own sons. I watched through the crack of the ajar door as my mother hugged a stranger's child, fixed his hair, and laughed with the same laugh that used to be meant for me. It was psychological torture. They were showing me, you are replaceable. Your personality doesn't matter. Only the type matters. I was just a function that was now being performed by someone else, higher quality and without facial defects. My hatred for them outgrew my fear. I decided I would no longer play by their rules. I started gathering evidence. I didn't have a phone. They took it away after the accident, but I found an old tablet in the pantry that they had forgotten. I started secretly recording videos from my imprisonment. I filmed the empty room, the meager food, the sound of their cheerful streams through the wall. I filmed my scar in close-up. I found documents on Dad's desk, draft contracts discussing how to write the son character out of the storyline to increase audience engagement. It was cold-blooded script planning, where my life was just a failed story arc that needed to be closed. I uploaded everything to the cloud. I knew that if I were caught, the punishment would be terrible. Maybe they would actually send me somewhere I couldn't return from. But I had nothing to lose. I was no longer their son, I was their whistleblower. D-Day arrived during the Christmas Miracle livestream. The house was decorated with thousands of lights. The tree cost as much as a car. In the living room sat my parents and the new, talented boy they were introducing as their protege. They smiled at the camera, talking about family values and charity. I slipped out of my room. I didn't hide. I walked straight into the living room wearing my old, stretched t-shirt, with the scar on my face uncovered. When I entered the frame, Mother's smile froze, turning into a grimace of horror. Dad tried to jump up and block the camera with his body, but it was too late. Thousands of viewers saw the ghost. I'm not at boarding school, I said loudly, looking straight into the lens. I live in the next room, and they are ashamed of me. The chat exploded. Dad grabbed my arm and tried to push me out of the frame, but it looked like violence. The stream was abruptly cut. The screen went black. Silence hung in the room, heavier than the crash of the lamp. Mother sobbed, not from shame, but because her carefully built empire of perfection was collapsing. Dad stood pale, fists clenched, realizing he couldn't touch me. Any aggression could now bring serious consequences. I silently packed a backpack with the old tablet, the documents, and all the evidence I had collected over weeks. They didn't even glance at me. Their attention was consumed by the chaos online. Stepping into the cold night air, I finally felt alive. I had no money, no plan, and a scar that would always mark me, but I was free. The illusion of our perfect family shattered completely, leaving only the truth, the raw reality, and a sense of liberation they could no longer deny. For the first time, I was just me, outside the lens, outside their world. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel, like it, and click on the bell so you don't miss any more stories. See you soon.